it's time to review the front pages of our national dailies. We kickstart with Daily Trust. The bolder headline states, Fubara returns hobbled. That's on pages 4 and 5 of the Daily Trust newspaper. And then we have ShopRite stores shut in Ibadan, Ilorin, shelves empty in Lagos and Abuja. That's on page 19 of the Daily Trust newspaper. And Saudi Arabia frees 3 Nigerians detained over alleged drug trafficking. That's on page 17 of the Daily Trust. NECO 2025 results, 60.26% get 5 credits. Kano leads. That's on page 14 of the Daily Trust. And just below the bolder headline, many IPOB terrorists killed in Imo, says police. That's on page 26 of the Daily Trust. And then we have abducted Katsina couple freed after 50 million naira ransom. That's on page 7 of the Daily Trust. And lastly, how 4 FIRS senior staff others died in Lagos fire. That's on page 6 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Do well to get yourself a copy and stay informed.
All right, moving on, we have the Nigerian Tribune. Right in front, Rivers emergency rule. Tinubu returns Fubara after 6 months suspension. Says over 40 cases were instituted against the proclamation. Mixed reactions in Rivers. That's on page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune. At the top left, we have Afriland Towers fire. FRS mourns death of 4 staffers as Elumelu pays tribute to fallen UBA staffers. At the bottom, we have gunmen on motorbike storm baptism ceremony in Niger Republic. Killed 22. That's on page 15 of the Nigerian Tribune. I'm not joining ADC, says Adeleke. That's on page 24. Still on Nigerian Tribune, Ondo PDP candidate Agbola withdraws Supreme Court appeal against Aidatiwa. That's on page 4 of the Nigerian Tribune. NBS report proof of our investment in agriculture, says Oyebanji. That's on page 24. 2027, despite endorsement, Tinubu must emerge at convention. Yilwata, APC national chairman, denies INEC's claim of early campaign, says ADC not an organized opposition. That's on page 4 of the Nigerian Tribune. Make sure you grab yourself a copy and stay informed.
Moving on, we'll take a look at The Guardian, and the bolder headline states, doubts, uncertainty in Rivers. Power tussle as Fubara returns. That's on page 6 of The Guardian. And just above the bolder headline, Dapman, Dangote, biker over diversion allegation of 1.5 trillion naira subsidy demands. That's on page 3 of The Guardian newspaper. And then we have Ondo Poll South. Supreme Court dismisses appeal against Aiyedatiwa's victory. That's on page 7 of The Guardian. And World Patient Safety Day, LASG bemoans wastage in healthcare delivery. That's on page 7 of The Guardian. And just by the side, we have federal government says 330 billion naira disbursed in cash transfers to poor households. That's on page 5 of The Guardian newspaper. And over 60% of candidates pass 2025 SSCE with 5 credits above. That's on page 29 of The Guardian. And traders count losses as UBA FIRS months staff lost in Lagos fire. That's on page 8 of The Guardian. NECA urges strategic monetary policy easing as IMPI projects 17% inflation by year end. That's on page 3 of The Guardian newspaper. And then we have Anambra Guba play by rules. Ohanize tells Soludo Okachukwu Ekunife. That's on page 28 of The Guardian newspaper. Do well to get yourself a copy and stay informed.
All right, moving on, we have the Punch newspaper right in front. Emergency rule winners, losers as Tinubu reinstates Fubara. President justifies action as over 40 court cases pending, cautions governors on good governance. Wiki Rivers will henceforth witness peace and progress. 6 months wasted, Rivers elders lamented. That's on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. At the top left, we have federal government, states, local governments shared 2.2 trillion naira August revenue, says FAAC. That's on page 23 of the Punch. Cash transfer. Federal government pays 330 billion naira to 8.1 million households. That's on page 23 as well of the Punch newspaper. UK-Nigeria bilateral trade hits 16 trillion naira, says a British envoy. That's on page 18 of the Punch newspaper. There are 1,000 protests in London over Trump UK visit. That's on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. Federal government returns history to basic school curriculum. That's on page 19. 7 victims confirmed killed in Lagos building fire. And lastly, we have federal government votes 300 billion naira to power teaching hospitals and varsities. That's on page 19 of the Punch newspaper. Make sure you grab yourself a copy and stay informed.
All right, joining us to review some of the headlines on the pages of today's newspaper is the editor-in-chief of Dateline Nigerian newspaper, Nasiru Lawal. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right, let's kickstart with a Daily Trust and with the bolder headline, Fubara returns. What's your thought on that?
Well, let me start by saying that I like the headline of the Daily Trust because just like you can see, it's actually the biggest story of the day, especially the fact that, you know, Fubara is going to take over today in Rivers. But then he is hobbled. You know, his hands are effectively tied now. He is no longer in control of the state. The lawmakers are not, you know, in his corner. If you look at the local government chairman also, so he is back in government, but then he's no longer in control. Everything now revolves around the FCT minister. You know, whatever he wants now, he's likely going to get it. And if you can see, just like so many papers reported, you know, there were so many court cases, you know, after the president's proclamation in March. But then we even don't know, you know, the fate of those court cases now. Are they going to continue? You know, are those who instituted the legal cases, are they going to withdraw them? That's what we don't know for now. But you can see that in Nigeria, actually, court cases, you know, drag on unnecessarily. This is 6 months after, you know, the president's action, but then we are not even in the know as to what the courts are actually doing. Say, for instance, what if the courts now decides that the president's action, you know, violated the Constitution? That means we are likely to see an extension, you know, of Fubara's tenure. That means he will not be leaving by May 2027. So if that is the case, then why are the courts, you know, like foot dragging over the case? And then, yeah, I think that's basically the whole thing. Wike is now back in control. And for those who are saying he's likely to join the APC, you know, time will tell whether he's going to do that. But for now, I don't think he's likely going to join the APC as it is, you know, because Wike is still in PDP, you know, even though some will say he's one leg in APC and one leg in PDP. But then if the minister remains within the circle of the PDP, I don't see the governor, you know, being able to do that, because most of the people that actually supported him, you know, in the fight against Wike actually abandoned him, or at a point couldn't help him. So he is now to decide whether to continue with the fight or whether he has capitulated, like so many newspapers are saying.
All right, let's look at this headline. Abducted Katsina couple freed after 50 million naira ransom. I'd like to hear your take on this, the process of, you know, them being kidnapped, as well as the process of the exorbitant amount of ransom that was asked up until it got down to 50 million, and now, thankfully, they've been freed.
Well, it's actually a sad commentary that, you know, non-state actors, these criminals, are still, you know, having their way, so to say. Because if you look at it, you know, what business in Nigeria can you do that you can be able to make 50 million within just 3 weeks or so? Because these couples were, you know, abducted in August, I think around 26 or so. But then, you know, just 3 weeks after, the bandits are now, you know, have now gone home with 50 million naira. I know some will say they started with 600 million naira, reduced it to 100 million, and then in the end they collected 50 million naira. So the more we continue to pay this ransom, the more we are likely to see, continuation of this criminality. Because if well, the families are actually in a tight corner. You may refuse to pay, and then you may lose your loved ones. So nobody will want to do that. But then, it is that emotion that the bandits are actually banking on. That if you don't do this, we are going to kill your loved one and what have you. So the more they continue to pay them, the more they will continue to find, easy targets, people that they can abduct, and with the prevalence of, what do you call them, informants, that are all over the place, always willing to tell these bandits that, so person is, a good target. If you can go after him, you are likely to get, ransom in good time and what have you. So basically, that's just the thing. But I congratulate the family, the fact that they are now able to get their loved ones back in their midst.
All right, then let's look at NECO 2025 results. 60.26% get 5 credits. Kano leads.
Well, it's a good story for Kano. Some will say, it's like the first time that a northern state will be, in a very long while, that a northern state will be leading the chart. But leading the chart, I think it's not enough. We have to go beyond that. Those who are now, have the chance of going into the universities or furthering their education, should be helped. Those that cannot afford, I know the president has introduced, NEL fund, where students can now access some loans, to be able to fund their education. But then the government should find a way of, like helping those that need it, those that merit, all this assistance. If we are able to do that, we are likely to encourage so many people to continue with their education, because right now there are so many people that have completed their secondary school, but because of lack of resources, you find them, finding 1 or 2 menial jobs, something that, as far as I'm concerned, is very degrading to their status.
All right, let's look at this. How 4 FRS senior staff and others died in Lagos fire. We saw, the fire got in the whole building, and they had to escape. Most people had to escape through, jumping off the building, and some could not really escape, and they lost their lives. So what is your take on this, and how do you think that these kind of incidents can be avoided when it comes to having office fires?
Well, are we even living up to the standards, to following the protocols, when we build? Because fire incidents, like, we don't plan them, but they happen once in a while. So when they happen, what's the response? Are we able to, be able to rescue people in good time? You see, these ones, are unlucky, and they died in the process. But then we have to find out, what even started the fire, what's like the fire protocol in the building, so that we will be able to start penalizing, those who violate the building code and what have you. But to just say that 4 people have died, so many people just see it as just names, because we have not seen faces, we have not known the people, the extent of the damage and what have you. So if we are able to come out with the details of the story, I know if you go through it, you will see all the details. But like I said, they are not just numbers. These are people that belong to families. Families have lost their loved ones. So we shouldn't just allow this to just go without any consequences. Those who violated the building code, like I said, we need to find a way of, sanctioning them, so that at least it will serve as a deterrence to those, that are likely to violate the law.
All right, lastly, on the Daily Trust, Saudi Arabia frees 3 Nigerians detained over alleged drug trafficking. What's your take on this?
Well, it's good that the NDLEA followed up on the case. I know in 2022 or so, a lady, Zainab, was even on the death row in Saudi Arabia before she was eventually freed. Luckily, she is now, a member of the NDLEA. She is now an officer. Probably one of her targets will be to find a solution to things like this. But my problem is the fact that, something like that happened in the past, and then it is now happening again, which means we have not taken the action that we should have taken in the past. Like, the syndicate, that perpetrates this criminality, how are they able to, put baggages into to people's luggage? How are they able to do that without being caught? You have CCTV, you have, all forms of security and other form of protocols in the airport, but then they are able to do that. And when it happened in 2022, we expected that at least that syndicate should have been, broken or something like that. But then they just continue. Only God knows the number of people that have, either lost their lives or lost their freedom as a result of the activities of all these members of this airport syndicate. So I think the government should follow up, just like the NDLEA tried, engaged with the Saudi authorities, and then succeeded in freeing these 3 Nigerians. I hope they will also continue. They will go a notch higher by ensuring that, just not just in Kano, all around the airports in Nigeria, all those that are part of this syndicate, because they are not one, they are part of the security part. Everybody is involved from what we can see. So if they're able to break that, I think they will help so many Nigerians, because people are innocent. And then how do you even prove your innocence when you are arrested in a foreign land? That's the problem for me.
All right, quickly before we go, let's look at something on the foreign scene. 1,000 protests in London over Trump UK visit, and we know this is not the first time that they're protesting when Trump came visiting. So what is your take on this, and how do you think their reactions are when it comes to Trump himself and the way he conducts as a president?
Well, Trump is a very difficult human being. If you go on his probably his page on his Truth social media platform, you are likely to see his reaction. He is someone that actually does not bother about things like this, because he was in the UK to see the authorities, and he has been able to do that. He is not like, to address the protesters that maybe they can end up booing him or something like that. So he has achieved his target. He wouldn't bother about all the protests. But you can see the fact that people have come out to protest. Anytime something like this is happening in Nigeria, we shouldn't, be just sending the police after, because it's something that is legal. People are free to do that as long as they remain within the law without becoming violent and what have you. We should allow people to always, air their views. If they don't like his presence in the UK, allow them to say so. But there are others that are probably okay with his presence in their country. So everybody should be allowed, to have his way without necessarily violating the right of the other.
All right. Thank you very much, Nasir Lawal, for being here and, looking at the front pages with us and reviewing what we met there.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, we've come to the end of a daybreak on Trust TV. Make sure you tune in tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. so you don't miss out on engaging and interesting conversations. I am Hawa Adam Kiawa. Thank you for watching.
And I am Yemuna Bagudu. Do well to follow us on all of our social media platforms and subscribe to our YouTube live stream to stay informed. Have a great day. Bye-bye.